Welcome to day 5 of the daily vlog for the month of April. Today's topic, I decided I was going to talk about writing. I organize a meetup group for local writers, and basically we have a plethora of genres. We have romance writers and horror writers and science fiction and literary, and we have poets. We have all kinds of writers in our group. We basically join together so that we can do workshops, share resources, and socialize, because sometimes only another writer can understand the pain and agony of writer's block. So what I've decided to do today is share the top 10 things that I've learned in the past 2 years of writing. Now, there was many things that I learned to write, but I felt that these were kind of surprising to me, and I thought maybe other would-be writers out there might glean something from it. So, number 1, doubt is part of the writing process. I'm not sure really what I thought before, but that was kind of a surprise to me, where, you know, when you're writing, there are so many doubts and little things that nag, like, you know, oh, that sentence sounds stupid, or this character isn't acting right, or something. And you just have to learn to ignore that little voice inside of you. We call that the inner editor. And the inner editor has no business sitting on your shoulder when you're writing a first draft anyway. The first draft, you need your creative muse. You need that creative, just write whatever feels from the heart. You know, that's where the creativity comes from. My inner editor is a jerk, and he likes to sit on my shoulder and feed that self-doubt I have. So I just have to you just ignore it. And what I do often is I just listen to music and write out scenes and stuff. Number 2, sometimes you don't need to start at the beginning of a story. Some people get kind of really caught up on, like, where is that beginning of a story? Well, a lot of times when you're writing a story, fiction, you have to start where the conflict is. You have to ask yourself, what's the main problem that your character has to deal with? And that's where you start. Like, when that problem is starting, that's where the start of the story is. But you can, as a writer, start the story anywhere. If you're not quite sure where that beginning is, just start writing. When you're editing, it will become clear then where you should start. So, because one of the writing rules that we learn is don't write backstory, don't write prologues, don't write about the weather. It was not a dark and stormy night. Number 3, good spelling, punctuation, and grammar are the tools of a writer. Now, this seems pretty apparent. It should be obvious. But I have met writers where they sort of ignore certain writing rules because, you know, they want the story to be first. It's about characters and, you know, plot. I'm kind of surprised. I've even found printed books, you know, books you buy that had problems with spelling, you know, or a misuse of a word. You know, what is your main idea, and what are the supporting sentences, and how do you punctuate dialogue, and, you know, those whole things. So you need to know how to do this. Now, one little trick that I've found really helped me was I basically decided to always be mindful of it. This included text messaging, emails, you know, my blog, so that I'm always aware of it. And I found that it was by leaps and bounds. Like, within 6 months, I saw a considerable improvement in all my writing. So I would suggest that little tip. Let's see, where are we here? Number 4, you must learn the writing rules in order to understand when to break them. Okay, so you always learn, you always hear the same sort of rules. Like, don't start with weather, don't start with a dream sequence. There's even, like, you know, cliches and stereotypes that you don't want to do. You can add them. There's nothing really wrong with them, but you have to understand why editors don't want you to use them, or readers don't want to read about them, so you can understand when and if you can use them. Like, for instance, a good example is, like, don't write about the weather. Certainly don't start a story with the weather. However, if your character, the main conflict is dealing with a total devastation after, say, an earthquake or a tornado, then that is your story, and you have to start with that. So, you know, that's just an example. Number 5, feedback is essential to the writing process. I think writers are so much into their head, and you can be so involved in your story for so long. Sometimes even stopping, it feels like coming up for air. But feedback gives you fresh eyes on the subject. In fact, a lot of times they say that if you write, set it aside and come back to it a few months later, and then you kind of have a fresh look, and you'll be able to see the errors and if things are working out. But the feedback is very crucial, a very important part of it. And number 6 is there is no secret to writing. There's no, like, I get people who sometimes email me because, I have a writer's blog, which is like, how do I write? How can I get past this writer's block and stuff? There's no big secret. You sit and you write. There's people can give you tips and there's little rituals you can do, but they're not going to work for everybody. You have to find for yourself, like, what's going to work. Do you need to write in night times? Do you have to write during the day? Are you dealing, writer's block has many different causes. It could be anything from, like, maybe you're depressed or maybe you need to get out into the world to get inspired, but there's no secret. You just write. You sit down and write. Number 7, rejection is also a vital part of the publishing process. I have yet to be, I haven't gone through, like, the printed publishing. I am self-published. But the rejection, like when I do, like I did that with a short story, with a novel I intend to go through a publisher. And I believe that that's like, if you Google authors and rejection, and you can find lists of famous authors like Stephen King and Anne Rice and Hemingway, and the number of times that they were rejected. And you just see that that's just part of the process. It's not that you're a bad writer. It's not that the story's bad. It's just that that's part of the process, and you just have to keep at it. Number 8, self-publishing is quickly losing its stigma as a publishing cheat. Some people used to think that self-publishing was sort of a vanity because you would be paying money, and like anybody can be published, and that's true. Like even self-publishing, you can self-publish through Amazon Kindle singles. They accept short stories, create space. You can get a printed book or the print on demand. Anybody can get published now. However, the cream rises to the top. Readers, if you're a good writer, you can still be a best-selling author. A bestseller is simply, the number of books that you've sold. So you can actually be a self-published best-selling author, if you know your marketing and stuff. So, number 9, different genres of writing often have different rules. That kind of surprised me because, normally I write fantasy and science fiction, and this past year I've been writing some horror, freaking myself out, and I find that there's like different rules and expectations of these genres. Romance is very different than science fiction, and science fiction is different than fantasy. So you have to kind of learn the rules of the genre that you write in, and you learn the rules so that later you can break them. And number 10, first drafts are crap. They're supposed to be crap. That's why they're a first draft. So when you write, just accept the fact it's going to be crap. And you're probably going to have all these problems but you'll work them out, okay? So when you're writing, don't let the editor, nag at your doubts. Just write, get it out, and then you'll polish it up later. So those are the top 10 things. If you can think of any other tips, or like you as an author, put in comments. I would love to hear them. Maybe you have some insight that even I haven't gotten. And if you'd like the video, please click the like button, subscribe, and if you want to see future, if you're curious about like other things that you might want to know about organizing a writers group or things that we do in the writers group and stuff, please leave comments and questions, and I'll be more than happy to add them in a video later. So as always, thanks for watching.